tell the guys, we're thin but mighty. Anybody that's ever asked about our program over the last few years, I've been saying the same thing.
Princeton's always been a tough football team. One thing about us is we're going to play tough. We love to hit. Hitting is like preached, and it's like the gospel in Princeton.
I don't want to have all these rules and all these things that you got to try and memorize. Just the word all in. All in.
Football is one of the greatest sports in the world.
It was certainly emotional, no doubt about it. It always is between us and Ocean City.
I don't like losing. The kids don't like losing. And I don't want to lose to the same team over and over and over again. We want to win a state championship.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Cal One-on-One right here on Cape Atlantic Live, presented by Ulmer's Appliance Service. I'm your host, Nick Kosko, as we roll on with our 2025 high school football season previews. With me today is Buena head coach Kyle Klein. Coach, good to talk to you. I know you guys are building something pretty good over there in Buena, looking to progress from the 2024 season. Just how's the offseason been going and leading up to training camp in the summer? I can't believe we're already 2+ months away from football.
Yeah, it's been a great off season. Our kids have put a ton of work in. Year one was about instilling our culture and our expectations and standards. As we went through our second off season, our kids have they've gone above and beyond. They've done everything we've asked them to do. They fully committed themselves. We have a young group, but we're really excited to see what the summer brings for us.
When you develop a young group, especially when you have to shift from year one to year two, what were some of the biggest things you noticed over the course of the offseason, whether it be weight training, or skill on the football field, or maybe more attention to detail? What were some of the big standout things you saw this winter?
I would say confidence. We just want our kids to believe in themselves. You can see they have a different look in their eye. They're holding each other accountable. They know what we're looking for, and we're getting to the point where they're starting to hold each other accountable. So that's a really cool place to be, when I don't have to do all the enforcement, and you got kids stepping up and they want to lead. So it's a really exciting time because you can see it all happening, and the coaches are noticing the energy is different. We're past the getting to know process. We're just at the point now where they know me, I know them. They know the staff, they know what we're looking for, and you could tell the excitement is there.
It was a tough start to the season for you guys last year, but you did end with three straight wins, and then a tough loss to Point Pleasant Beach in that second consolation game in terms of the postseason stuff as well. But I think that strong end of the season, was that a big signal to you and your staff? It's like, all right, we're finally clicking a little bit, maybe a little bit late, but it's going to bode well for the seniors last year that graduated, and on a high note, plus what we're actually going to be building in the future.
Yeah, it was it was crazy because it was actually, you could feel the moment when it happened during the season. We ended up losing the game, but you could just see the look on everyone's faces change during one of the games where they started to believe in themselves. That group was such an interesting group last year because they were extremely talented, just raw. So we had the senior leadership mixed with a bunch of young, raw talent. Most of our guys were new to football or in their second year. So I wasn't surprised it took us a little bit to get going. But once it did, again, you could see the look in their eye. The confidence changed, and they believed in themselves, and they knew they could compete with anybody they played with. So it was an interesting year. But like I said, to see that turning point happen and feel it in the moment, and then to end the season the way we did, competing with an awesome and very, very well-coached Point Pleasant team, to take them down to the wire like that, it was a huge moment for our program and for our kids, and it really gave us momentum headed into the offseason.
What was that moment you're referring to? I know, again, it was a tough little streak there from like September to October, but then you guys turned it around. What moment do you think you saw, okay, these kids are now like going to turn the corner?
It was in the Bishop Eustis game. They were extremely talented, well-coached football team. They didn't do a ton schematically, but what they did, they executed to near perfection. And we went out there and we played a tough, physical brand of football. I mean, everything I asked them to do, they did, and they competed. We made a couple critical errors in the final quarter of the game. But there was a point in the game where for me, I felt it all coming together. I felt the play calling and the system offensively was coming together. Defensively, the energy and the physicality they played with. it was one of those moments where we brought them in and we were down maybe a touchdown, and you could see they fully believed that we were going to win that game. And again, it came down to a couple critical errors, but that was really the turning moment. And the crazy part about that was we ended up losing 2 more games following that game, but the competitiveness and the belief was at a different level. We lost to a St. Joe team that was super talented. And then we lost to a New Egypt game, but it was like one of those games where another super well coached team, but athletically we matched up really, really well with them. But it gave us confidence because when you're playing against other well coached programs, you could see, that we were also a well coached program, and that was a credit to my staff. They were doing everything I asked them to do, and it was just, again, it was the moment. You could feel it, you could see it, and from that point forward, we were a different football team.
Mm-hmm. When you came in last season, Buena's had some rough patches over the last couple of years. It's been, I believe, about 5, maybe 6 or so years since they made a big run, and they had a 9-1 season, 8-2 season back to back. Within recent memory, obviously. When you come into a situation like this, where maybe there's less kids, or maybe the confidence is low, as you mentioned, the confidence took big strides, especially this offseason too, coming into 2025. What was the first thing you did when you said, all right, this is how we're going to change the culture. Here's some new things we're going to do. What was the first thing you said to the kids, for those who, don't know much about you and your program dating back to last year?
First thing was pitching them my I guess my vision for the program. First, I wanted to tell them what I saw before I even told them about me. I wanted to tell them what I saw and what our capabilities were. So first thing I wanted to do was build a connection with them. Second thing I wanted to do was build the self-belief. And third thing is where we're at now, is it's time to execute. It's time to put the product on the field. But as far as the culture building has gone, I couldn't have asked for a better process so far. We wanted to recruit our hallways. We wanted to build the confidence, build their bodies physically in the weight room. So from like I said, from that standpoint, I couldn't be happier with how it's gone so far. But again, for me, it was about building that connection with them, getting them to trust me, and me trusting them. And then, like I said, we're in that phase 3 now, where it's time to put the product on the field.
Mm-hmm. When you look at the progress in the weight room from the winter and the spring, and now you're going to start going back onto the field, helmets, and eventually, uppers, and all of a sudden we're going to get into training camp in August, or, late July, early August. When you see that progress in the weight room, what really stood out compared to year one, where you're like, all right, this is how we're going to implement our strength and conditioning program. And now for year 2, you're like, all right, we know what to expect, so let's start pumping up numbers. Let's get faster, stronger, and smarter. How did that look, I guess, through the months of December, like all the way up and basically until now?
Yeah, so year 1 was about the implementation. Set the standard. As far as the weight room goes, show them what our key movements were going to be, what we were going to build our weight program around. Taking it slow because we didn't want anyone to get hurt. We didn't want to push too hard and have kids kind of fall out of the program. We wanted them to trust us and build that self-belief first. And then year 2, and my staff brought it to my attention, you can walk in the building and you just feel a buzz now. The kids are working. We can do workouts now where, we can go into it that week and say, we're going to challenge them physically and mentally this week. And we want to see who rises to the occasion. And like I said, you can feel it now. You can walk in and we don't have to really walk on eggshells with them anymore. We can say what we got to say. We can coach them hard. And like I said, they coach each other hard. And that was what I was looking for. I was looking to see that point where they want it. What's next, coach? Hey, how can I get better? Once I started hearing questions like that, I knew we were ready to take that next step in the weight room.
Is that a really cool moment for you and your staff, where, maybe year 1, you're like, here's the entire workout, here's the entire plan, day to day, week to week, month to month, and now you walk in, it's like, well, these kids know what they're doing. We can just kind of sit back and watch.
Yes. It's something you can't really put words to. Year 1, you have your moments in that year 1. You're like, man, what did we get into? Our staff looking at each other, the kids all looking at us like, what do you have us doing here? And now to be at the point where the staff walks in and they're all smiling at each other, like, do you remember where this kid came from? Do you remember where he started last year? So to, not even kids near the top end of the roster, we're talking the back end kids who weren't even sure if this was going to be for them, to see them lifting 400, 500 pounds off the floor and screaming with confidence, that's a moment I never even anticipated having moments like that. So just to see it happening so quickly, it's one of my prouder moments so far.
That's really cool. What's it like coaching at a small school? I've talked to coaches ranging from Group 1 all the way up to Group 5, different programs, a lot of history, whether it's, they're rebuilding or they're in constant contention over the last, 5 or so years. What's it like coaching at a small school like Buena? Because, obviously with the, the traditional Cape Atlantic teams, there is no more Cape Atlantic League. Everyone's in the West Jersey Football League, so it's a little bit different. You don't play the traditional same teams from these two counties, and you guys are obviously are out a little bit more west. But what's it like coaching with a small school, seeing different programs pretty much year to year? But you mentioned that buzz, and where you'll see a buzz like that for maybe bigger schools or programs that are coming off huge playoff runs or a state championship. But now for you guys, it's starting to build now. Like, do you feel something simmering now?
I do, and especially to have such a young team. We'll only have 3 seniors that'll see the field this year, realistically. But to be fully transparent with I didn't know what to expect coming to such a small school. I'm an Atlantic City kid, so to be honest with you, when I got our schedule, I wasn't as familiar with some of the programs as I would hope to be.
Right.
And I didn't know what to expect. I don't want to say I underestimated the coaching or the athletic ability. But maybe I did, and it's a credit to small school football coaches, because when you get out on that field, we're all in the same boat. We all have limited numbers, possibly limited resources. So to see these coaches coaching their butts off and doing unique things and doing whatever possible to get a W, it's really cool to see. That was something that surprised me a little bit. Some of the best coaches that I've met so far in high school football are coaching at small schools. And I'm sure it's the same way across the country. So it's a great representation of old school, do anything you can to do to get a W. It's like I said, it's a raw version of football. So it's really cool, and it was really surprising. And I was also really surprised at how many great athletes are at some of these schools. We're in a little bit of a unique position because we're more farm country. We don't have a ton of speed. We got some decent sized kids, strong as hell, tough as nails. And then we play a lot of really, really athletic small schools. So it's a challenge for us, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I love where we're at, and I love the type of kids that we get.
You mentioned that raw football. Is that how you kind of describe Buena's style to this point on offense and defense? I'm not sure what offense. Are you guys old school and run like the wing tee or something like that? I know you guys like to pound the football. What's the style for offense and defense as far as Buena's concerned?
Sure. So we're a spread option team, so we do run the hell out of the football. When the opportunity presents itself, we would like to be able to pass the football. It's just about a matter of doing what we're best at.
Yeah.
Traditionally, wherever I've been, we've thrown the ball a decent amount, and we've thrown it when we've had to. But we're not going to do something that we're not great at. Last year we had a really strong offensive line. We had some really powerful running backs. We had 2,500 rushing yards, I want to say, between 3 kids. And we lose all that production this year. So we're looking for people to step in and fill those shoes, but we're going to do what we're best at, and it's early. So for me to tell you we're going to run the ball 50 times a game, it'd be a dream come true to go out there and win games that way. That's what I love to do. But if one of our young quarterbacks shows that he's ready to accept the challenge and our receivers are ready, then I have no problem changing up things to fit our style a little bit.
I love hearing that. So we'll dive into the 2025 kids that are coming back, and of course, what's to come this season. Just a second. This is Cal 1-on-1 right here on Cape Atlantic Live.
This broadcast is brought to you by Harbor Jiu-Jitsu. Located in Egg Harbor Township, Harbor Jiu-Jitsu is more than just training. Both adults and kids can gain practical skills that give you real confidence, build physical and mental resilience, and you can join a team that's here to help you grow. Featuring no gi, wrestling, and MMA classes. Harbor Jiu-Jitsu is the most dynamic gym in South Jersey. For more information, check out harborjiujitsu.com.
So So I'll start with a few guys on offense coming here for 2025. You told me before the show, Frank Burke and Josiah Martin, key guys coming back on an offensive line. You mentioned even last year with that dominant rushing offense, the offensive line was key last year. So those guys come back with some cohesion. And then you mentioned there's a quarterback battle, but there are some skill guys back that are going to contribute as well. Guys like Anthony Muzzarelli, Sincere Toussaint, running back and wide receiver. And that's not even naming everybody, but it seems like, yeah, you lost production last year, but you have a lot of kids back this year that what they know what to expect here this coming fall.
Yeah, no doubt. We have again another young team, even younger than last season. So it'll be interesting. Like I said, we have some big shoes to fill. Ben Cohen, Lucas Jalura, Troy Gregory. Those guys were between the three over 2,000 yards rushing. But like you said, we have young guys that got decent playing time. They know our expectation. Anthony Muzzarelli, he's he's the heart and soul of our team. That's our team captain. That's our voice. He's the energy of our team. Adam Mayer, kid is an absolute horse with a very bright future playing football. Zach Cohen's going to step in, and he's asserted himself as a leader very early on. And the crazy thing about this team is Anthony is the only key skill guy that's going to be graduating after the season. So the next couple of years are really exciting. It's a really exciting time in Buena football to have so many young players that are going to be 2 or 3 year starters by the time they're finished their career. So I'm excited for this year. I'm just as interested as maybe some of our opponents are to see who our guys are. But that's what summer's for. We're going to find out.
That's funny. You mentioned Zach Cohen already, a sophomore, stepping up as a team captain, voted on, and then Nate Medina as well as a senior on your defense. 2 guys are going to be key in the secondary. It's interesting when you have a young team because usually new coaches, they'll come in, maybe they have a bigger senior class, and then they have to rebuild the young guys. You came in last year with a relatively young team, and now the team's even younger, but with experience. Do you find yourself in a very unique situation where you're, I guess if you want to call it a rebuild or like a culture shift at Buena, it's in a more unique situation than maybe if you were somewhere else?
Yeah, it is. It's even more unique than I anticipated. Because like I said, last year's team, we had some seniors. We didn't have a lot. I think we had 6 seniors that contributed key time. I would do anything to have, another year with that group mixed, keeping with the same group that we have this year, just because the experience and the leadership that group brought to the table. But this year's team, like I said, we know we have some guys that are going to have really good years this year and next year. It's just time to see who it is. We have a lot of pieces on the table where we just have to put them out there, put them in the best position to be successful, and let them battle. We gotta push them to their limits this summer because I want to see who's who, and I want to see what they're really about when the lights are on.
When you go into training camp, what does a position battle look like? Maybe like a quarterback, of course, that's the most important position on the field. So when you look at a position battle like that, you want to push these guys to their limit in training camp. Do you let that battle play out pretty much until the week of the first game? Do you have a decision on a position like that prior to that? And I guess the same question goes for other positions that maybe you have question marks at in terms of who's actually going to start. How do those battles look like when you're pushing these kids over the course of, let's just say, a month of training camp?
I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all method. I've seen battles come down to that final week of training camp. I've seen battles where within the first couple days who's going to win the position. What I want these kids to go out there and show me why they need to be the guy. Prove to me. I have no problem playing a younger player. I have no problem naming a young guy captain. Whoever fits the shoe. It's I want them, like I said, I want them to prove to me and to their teammates why they deserve to be on the field. Give me a reason to play you, and whoever can understand our system, whoever their teammates trust, there's a lot of factors that play into it. But I don't think there's a one size fits all. I just want them to do their part, give me everything they got, and then, whatever's meant to happen will happen.
I'll leave you here with this one, Coach. And again, appreciate your time joining and previewing Buena for the 2025 season. every program has something that they really stick to, some sort of phrase or motto. I've asked every coach because I do find it very interesting where I get, what I'm trying to put this in the right words, which is, how they practice what they preach or what they find the most important when it comes to team cohesion and what they really buy into. Is there a phrase or motto that Buena really stands by or that you and your staff stand by with your players?
Yeah, so we just talked about this today in our team meeting, actually. So each season by season, we'll give them like a theme for the season. Our overall program mantra is disciplined, dedicated, dependable. There's three things that we believe on. We hang our hat on those things. We know it will contribute to a good football player, a good person after high school. So that's what our program's built on. But our theme for the season is going to be 4th and 1. We want a 4th and 1 mentality. We want to approach every rep of practice, every rep in the weight room, every sprint with a 4th and 1 mentality. And football people know what I'm talking about. If we can attack every rep with that type of mentality, then we're going to be exactly who I want us to be. And we got the group. We're a 4th and 1 team. We're not 4th and 12. We want to be in 4th and 1s, and I trust our kids, and they trust our staff. So that's what we're rolling with this season, and for us to reach our goals, we got to win those 4th and 1s.
Sounds like you guys are not going to be punting at all this season. So, when do you guys open up the season? What's your season opener this year?
We open up on August 29th with Sterling. We went into overtime with those guys last year. Really exciting game. They have a lot of numbers. They're coached well. They're a tough team. We had a hell of a battle last year with those guys, and I thought it was only right to run it back in week 0 with them. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. I know our team's looking forward to that. We had a walk-off finish versus them, and a really, really exciting game. So I'm very juiced up for it. I know our kids are also. Our fans and parents are really excited. So it's going to be a nice Friday night opener for us on week 0.
That was one of the consolation games last year. That game, you said it's going to be at home for your season opener?
That'll be at Sterling.
At Sterling. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, countdown to August 29th is on Buena at Sterling for the 2025 season opener. Coach Kyle Klein with me here on Cal 101. Coach, appreciate the time. Good luck this season. Looking forward to watching this new era of Buena Chiefs football unfold.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me, Nick. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. This is Cal 101 presented by Ulmer's Appliance Service. Be sure to check out the rest of our podcast series on the YouTube channel at Cape Atlantic Live. And, of course, our live football coverage coming this season in September. We'll see you next time.